Voyagers was okay. I can't really complain. But before I get into my review of this movie, consider this your spoiler warning because I will be talking spoiler-ish. So you've been warned. So a long time ago, I did a trailer review, which I haven't done in a while, about this particular movie. And I think I said I was intrigued, but not enough, obviously, to keep me in the loop about when this movie came out and to go see it. But yesterday I was hanging out, about to go to bed, and I turned on my HBO MAX, and guess what popped out? So I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and watch it. And I'm glad I did. Now, this movie, before I get into my breakdown, so basically the plot is that we here on Earth, we messed up this environment, messed up Earth too much, and the only hope for us to expand our human civilization is to travel 86 years to the nearest habitable planet, and it will take 2 or 3 generations to get there. I think the movie at the end, it shows us that only 2 generations it took for us to get there. And they needed to have young kids. I'm talking about like 7-year-old kids to be the astronauts because it was going to be a long trip. And they needed these kids to be isolated from birth. No knowledge of Earth, no knowledge of anything. So they didn't miss anything from Earth. Now, Richard, played by Colin Farrell, decides to go with them as he feels like a parental obligation to make sure that they are protected and to make sure that they have the best odds in surviving. I mean, this is the first trip and the only trip from what it seemed like, even though if they had that technology, I'm like, well, why wouldn't they send more? But so anyway, so he volunteers and boom, they go off into space into their voyage, and we catch up 10 years later from launch, and they are now teenagers. Now we find out that in their process they're drinking this blue liquid. And when they're drinking this blue liquid, what it's doing, it is suppressing their urges. It's suppressing their aggressiveness. It's making the kids more docile, kind of bringing those hormones and testosterone down so that they have just not a mundane, because it just more easily, they could get along, for better words that are escaping me. So they could just get along and work on what they need to do to survive. Again, they're on a spaceship traveling 86 years. So it's just the way that NASA or the world government decides to go about it. So, of course, some of the kids find out what this blue, as they call it in the movie, is, and they decide to stop drinking it. And little by little, the aggressiveness comes in. 2 of our hero and our protagonist are the first ones not to take it. And you could see that one was going, the easiest way is that one was a beta and one was an alpha. Now, the beta was our hero and the alpha was the villain. And oh my God, I don't know the actor's name that played the villain, but oh, he got underneath my skin so much. But it's what he did, right? He was manipulative. He was aggressive. He was, well, let's win by any means necessary. I will lie, cheat, and steal to get my outcome. And he did a great job. So he should be commended for the great acting performance that he did. But anyway, so little by little, they convince people to not take the blue. Now, Richard, something happens where they have to go outside because the communication from the shuttle, or from the spaceship, let's just call it that, to Earth was broken down. And they were so far away that in one clip it shows that it takes 4 months and some weeks just to have a video message go through from the vessel to the ship. kind of amazing. I like the attention to detail in a lot of these shots that they did. I mean, I'm not no Neil deGrasse Tyson, so I don't know if it's accurate or not. I'm sure he looked at it and said like, "Oh, so it's all full of errors and stuff." That was a horrible impression of him. But anyways, so he goes outside and there's like a shadowy thing and he gets electrocuted, or we at least, and not at the time. At the time, we think it's like some alien, because everybody thinks it's like some kind of alien that kills Richard or electrocutes him, and we find out that he dies. So now the kids are left on their own accord. And from that, you could kind of telegraph, at least I did. I don't know if anybody else did, but you knew what was coming before it was coming. You knew that they were going to be breaking up of the group. Now, before I get more ahead of the plot, I was shocked that Richard died, and the fact that I thought our villain was gonna kill him because he was jealous. There was this girl in there that he really liked, and Richard, he thought that Richard was flirting, but he couldn't touch. So it was like this kind of jealousy thing. So I thought that he was gonna kill him. Now later on in the movie, we find out that he did kill him, but not in the way that at least us would kind of think of it, like in the old, like just stabbing them or choking them or doing something more devious, even though the way he killed them is pretty devious in its own right. So then anyways, so the kids are left in their accord, and of course they break up. One section, a few of them go with our hero, half of them go with our villain, and then little by little people are losing faith in our hero, and they keep on going towards our villain. And towards the end, there's only him and a couple of other people in his side. Just everybody's just aborted and got in with the strongest, the strongest male. Kind of what we see in the animal kingdom here on Earth, especially let's say with silverback gorillas. I mean, or even lions, or just any alpha male as far as the species wise. The strongest male, the whole colony gravitates towards that person because it's a matter of survival. But anyways, so it's like a mutiny happening, and at the end of the story they're trying to kill our Captain Kirk hero. And speaking of Captain Kirk, I think today he was sent up to space. But anyways, I digress. Fast forward to the end, because it's just a normal mutiny, hunting, fighting, whatever, like a Hunger Games in space, if you will. And ultimately, our hero and his girl manage to kill our villain, and they get stuff back in order where they're working as a unit, but they decide not to take the blue. And then 86 years later, after launch, at the end of the movie, they give us a little payoff, and they reach the new planet that looks a lot like Earth. Obviously, because it's an Earth-like planet. And that's basically the plot. So maybe I missed a couple things, whatever. But for more or less, that's the plot. So I thought the acting was okay. Better than okay. It was good. But there was some young actors that could have done a little better, especially with their face expressions. Everybody was too monotone, and I get when they were on the blue, but when they were off the blue, they should have been more emotions, and a lot of them didn't. Maybe it was by design, or they're fearful, they're scared, they're just going through the motion. Because once they get rid of the villain, they just get back in line. Like they were just following the strongest leader. And the strongest leader was the villain. But once our hero manages to dispose of the villain, I guess in a way they thought that he was now the strongest of them all, and they kind of just put their weapons down and get back into order. But I just thought the acting was a little bit off. And I thought the soundtrack was pretty dope. It was very futuristic. It fit the movie perfectly, very spacey. Very well shot. It's only done in close quarters, but when they got into space, when they showed Earth, I liked the way it was to scale. At least it seemed to be to scale. The majesty of space just everything, and not only that, the direness of being in a close quarters like that, and any little thing, any decision, even though small, gets magnified, and I enjoyed that a lot. So, and one last thing though was that if there was a young actor that has been in Hollywood, they got him for this movie. And surprise, surprise, for a lot of you Game of Thrones fans, and even Shadow and Bones on Netflix, we had Brad the Broken, or Brandon Stark, that was in this movie. He didn't have a lot of speaking roles, but neither did he have in, Game of Thrones. But it was nice to see him. It took me a while to say, hey, is that Brad? I'm like, oh, it is. I'm like, okay. And then our love interest from Shadow and Bones was also in this. But again, in Shadow and Bones, he was bald. In this one, he has a full set of hair. And I was like, oh, crap, that's him. But it's a nice little tidbit. But if there was a young actor or young actors that you've seen in movies, likelihood is that they were in this movie. So for me, I give this movie a B minus because it was a little bit too infuriating. They made our villain, and I guess I don't know if it was by design, but he antagonized me so much, and not in a good way. Like, I just, maybe it was the actor. I don't know. He played his part really, really good, but I don't know. Maybe he was written too abrasive, too harsh. I just don't think that at that point, he's 17 years old, 18 years old, whatever the age they are at this moment. It'll be like 17 years old. I just don't think that aggressiveness would be that magnetized, or that, in that magnitude in that short of period of time. And I thought the script was very poor, very, very generic in a lot of areas. And some of the scenes had pacing issues, even though I enjoyed the movie. But there was definitely some times where I was looking at my phone, or something else drew my attention, which is never good when you're in a movie. But it did more right than bad, so that's why it gets the B minus. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And like always, that's a wrap.